would just go live and talk about the way that I have used the law of assumption. So Neville Goddard teaches this concept of using the law of assumption, and it has really helped me to kind of expand my mind, expand in the way that I think, expand in the way that life happens. So kind of backstory, like I always felt like everything happens, that everything that I do is so hard. So how can I make it easier? And I've done a lot of Neville Goddard's work, and if you've ever done that, let me know in the comments if you've ever studied Neville Goddard's work, because it's so powerful to be able to learn different concepts from different people and then to take these concepts and actually implement and execute them in our lives. And with the law of assumption, it's the assuming that it's already complete, assuming that, and this is my perception. I'm sure, like, if you go dig into the book and dig into how he explains the law of assumption, it might be, you might have a different perspective, but this is from my perspective. And if you're curious about the law of assumption, I 10 out of 10 would recommend listening to Neville Goddard. I think The Power of Awareness is the book that I have, and that's the book that I read. And then I continue to go back to for the law of assumption. So, how I've been practicing it, and I start with little things, just because it's a little bit easier for me to wrap my head around the little things of the law of assumption. So, for me, when I'm running, so I just started running again, but when I'm running, I assume, because I've got to cross multiple roads where there's traffic and there's traffic lights. So I assume that when I'm running and I start running, I assume that I never have to stop. Like the traffic is going to either stop for me, and some people call this delusional. We'll talk a little bit about delusion also. But the traffic, so I assume that the traffic is going to stop for me or all the lights are going to be green, so I never have to stop on my run, because I don't want to stop my run because I'm literally in the middle of trying to hit a fast pace. So when I use the law of assumption, it's worked for me. And I'm like, okay, if this works for while I'm running, I can use it in other areas of my life. And so I've been practicing this more and practicing in it, kind of just being curious about, like, okay, let me use the law of assumption and see if it actually works in this area of my life. See if it works with like my boys and parenting. And it's this concept of assuming that things already happen, like you assume it. Now, once you assume it, you can't go into overthinking mode, which for me, I've had to learn really how to stop overthinking and how to really like get my mind around easy things can happen for me. Like I'm allowed to have super easy things happen in my life. And that takes a lot of deconditioning and a relearning, especially if you've had trauma in your past or you've dealt with traumatic experiences, which all of us have had some kind of traumatic experience in our life, one way or the other. And it's learning how to navigate that trauma and go into the world of like, now it gets to be easy. Life gets to be easy for us. And so practicing the law of assumption can help us move into that overthinking now and into more of this space of faith and more into this space of letting things be easy, because life doesn't have to be hard. Trust me, I know, like I've done hardship my entire life and I'm done doing hardship in my life. So, and it's also another one of those things that in 2026, I have made it one of my goals is to see how easy life can be for me, because I am tired of like the survival mode. So letting go of the survival mode and letting go of the survival story, and now going into more let me thrive, let it be super easy. Can I hustle and grind? Absolutely yes. Do I want to? No, because I'm tired and I'm learning to take breaks and rest. And this is where the law of assumption came in for me. And I was like, okay, this is a really cool concept. And if it works for me while I'm running and I assume that I have all green lights, I can use this. And then I joined a Facebook group that is also based off of Neville Goddard's work. And it's not just the law of assumption, but his other work. And let me know in the comments if you guys have ever tried Neville Goddard's work or tried any delusional hacks or whatever it was to help you guys through life, because I really want to hear these stories. But for me, like the law of assumption just helped me get out of like that fight or flight mode. Now, granted, I've also done like a lot of nervous system work. I continue to do that work, continue to decondition and continue to relearn that you can practice the law of assumption but you also have to take care of like the inner world. You have to take care of your mindset. You have to take care of your body, because your body does remember trauma, whether we like it or not. So yeah. Now back to the law of assumption. I got sidetracked in my thoughts there. Back to the law of assumption. So when we assume things are going to happen, that puts us in a assumption of like a very more of coming from a place full of faith, more coming from a place full of true faith and trust. And regardless of what your religious standpoint is, if you're God, religious, or whatever, it doesn't matter, but it does put us more into a faith perspective. So if you want to use the law of assumption, Evan, okay, the double E is Evan, shout your name out. Okay, you've been shouted out. And let me know in the comments if you guys have practiced law of assumption, or what kind of practices do you guys stay in that faith and that trust. And if you're business owners and you have practices, like, let me know, because I want to know like what is working for you guys, what has not worked. And also, if you guys have not done so yet, please subscribe and also comment. This is how I grow, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys watching this. But back to the law of assumption. So I always say start small. So for me, it was running and just seeing the green lights. And now I'm playing with bigger things in my business. I'm playing it with, the tech platform that I build out based on human design, assuming that this is going to be huge. It's going to make an impact. And then also being able to see in real time users come back to me and be like, oh my goodness, like this was so helpful. So I can see the impact, and then that strengthens my belief on the law of assumption. That strengthens my belief on the having faith that things always do work out, and staying grounded in that. So that's kind of where the practice of the law of assumption, but then also the part of the law of assumption is we get to not be focused on what our current reality is. And sometimes that can be really challenging if we're going through challenging times and we're like, oh my goodness, this sucks. But we have to pull ourselves out of that reality and focus just on like what do we want to assume, how do we want the outcome to be. So a lot of times I will ask myself, okay, this is what's currently happened, how do I really want this to work, how do I really want the outcome to be, and then whatever the outcome is, I will focus on that. So for example, we'll just give you a live example. Like I'm on YouTube, right? So I assume right now, I think I have like right around almost 4K subscribers. So I'm going to assume that my platform is going to grow and expand to 100K. I'm not going to focus that, oh my goodness, I just have 4K subscribers. No, I'm going to focus on building a platform that impacts, that provides value, that has subscribers that are engaged. That is going to be my assumption, even though that's not my reality. And just staying in that field of assumption will help us get into that reality. I know some of you, if you guys are watching this, you probably heard your mind and your beliefs create your reality. And that is very, very true. If you constantly have the belief that you're a failure, you're going to constantly fail. But if you can shift those beliefs, shift those identities, and the law of assumption is one of those tools that we get to use that can shift those identities and shift our practices to make us be more of a faith, to be where we want to be versus where we're at. So if you've shifted an identity, or if you're like, oh, I want to shift this habit, let me know in the comments and we'll talk about it. If there's a certain habit or a certain thing that you want to shift, whether it's exercise. I know right now we're in the start of 2026. Everybody is focused on moving their bodies and exercising. This was actually a huge journey for me when I first started working out. I was never taught to work out ever a day in my life growing up. And then when I started to work out and I started seeing results, and then I got into powerlifting, Spartan races, and all these things, it just became one of those habits. But I had to change the identity of being able to go into the gym to work out. Just like anything else, if you're in a business owner, where I'm in a season right now of building business, building impact, building a tech platform, it's not something I've ever done before. But I get to learn how to shift my identity and shift the thoughts and the beliefs, and not have the thoughts and the beliefs that I can't do this, because that's always a lie. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right, because if you sit there and tell yourself that absolutely I can do this, then you can do it. And my life is a testimony of that. there's many of things that I should have never accomplished that I'm at today with my story, my background of leaving the Amish culture and being where I'm at today. And that always shares like an amount of like faith and trust in my journey of like, if it's on my heart and it's on my mission and vision, then I'm going to execute it. And I get to use tools like the law of assumption, like meditation, like whatever it is. So just using those different tools will help us shift ourselves. And the more that we can shift ourselves, the more that we can understand that we create our own realities. And sometimes that also takes radical responsibility. Sometimes it takes us understanding that we get to be accountable, and then also deconditioning from the world. So besides the law of assumption, using the law of assumption, and I've also used the law of assumption with my boys in parenting. I've used it with money as well, which has worked. And but it's a practice. It's something that I kind of come and go with. And now in 2026, I'm more intentionally using it because I'm going for bigger goals and bigger things that are expanding me in ways that I've never been expanded. So let me know in the comments what some of your guys' goals are in 2026. I want to hear what your guys' goals are. But going back to like shifting the identities and using the tools, so whether it's meditation, whether it's the law of assumption, whether it's journaling, whatever it is, it's the consistency of constantly changing the behavior, changing the habits, changing the patterns that will help us get our results. And a lot of times we start and then we want to see this instant gratification. It's like you order the package and Amazon Prime delivers it tomorrow and you're like, oh my goodness, I finally have it. That's not how it always works with changing behaviors, because for years we have spent so much time in doing, learning this behavior, and we think in 5 seconds we should just unlearn the behavior and be on our way. That's not always how it works, unfortunately. So it kind of goes back to when we're looking to shift identities in ourselves, we have to give our great selves grace and time and be consistent with the work and be so aware of when we fall back into the old patterns. Like I mentioned, I practiced law of assumption a lot and then I kind of fell off, and now I'm going back and realizing this is one of the ways for me to stay consistent and to keep practicing the law of assumption, to keep practicing the stand in faith, to assume the good, to assume this is where I'm going, this is what I want, and so I'm going to focus on that and not just focus on my current situation, because a lot of times the current situation will mess us up to the point where we can't see the bigger vision of it, and so we get so caught up in it that we don't necessarily worry about like going after our big dreams, because we're in the spiral where if we can pull ourselves out of it and practice the law of assumption. And also sometimes we have to be a little bit delusional, and the world does not teach us to be delusional. It does not teach us on how to decondition from the constraints, which is why I love human design. If you follow my channel, I talk a lot about human design, but it deconditions ourselves from the constructs that the world has put us on, or the constructs that your parents or school or whoever has put onto you. You can decondition from that. And then, oh, interesting. Well, if you don't like that, you don't have to watch this channel. If it bothers me that I'm talking about this, like, you don't have to watch this. Clearly I need a moderator that can just block and delete. But yeah, with the law of assumption, it's very much just assuming what you want, what your outcome is, and then practicing it consistently. Like that's the biggest thing. And you really have to like keep practicing, keep showing up, and also doing it in community is really helpful. And there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can do this into. So if you tried the law of assumption, let me know how it works out. I'm always interested in hearing how it goes for others.